Hey guys, sorry I've been gone for so long. Hope your quarantine isn't going as shit as mine. So I made an April Fool's video to where I made it seem like I reviewed 4 different movies from this year. I didn't do that obviously, but it's what I'm doing now. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about 4 different movies. But I'm gonna switch up the style that I do these videos, so I'm gonna kind of do them like this. But we're gonna start it here first. Get into a couple movies that I've seen this year. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Sonic Man. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Birds of Prey, Onward, and The Way Back. I didn't really have anything to draw for The Way Back, so I kind of just wrote the story of Troy Bolton from High School Musical after 30 years, and I felt like it kind of fit. Now, this isn't going to be like the 2019 movie review where I kind of talk about all of them and dissect every movie that I saw. We're going to run down these pretty quickly. I'm just going to give my general ideas and stuff that I felt about these movies that I saw. I'm obviously going to talk about them as in-depth as I can, but we're not going to spend 30 minutes doing it. Go ahead and put some timestamps right here. You can go ahead and just skip to that if you want to watch me talk about a specific movie. But let's go ahead and just talk about The Way Back. Now, a little reference I made at the beginning of the video where I'm talking about The Way Back just basically being Troy Bolton's life 30 years later. High School Musical, just like the celebrities say in the pandemic, we're all in this together. Basically, this movie's about a former high school basketball player that was really good. He basically just threw his whole career away because his father only liked him because he played basketball. Didn't have the best relationship with his father. His father saw he was getting good at basketball, and then he paid attention to him. He didn't like that. The only reason he liked him was because of basketball. So he threw away his basketball career, got into drinking, drugs, the usual spiel. And 30 years later, he's a contractor, and the church that I believe that he went to school at, private school at or whatever, they want him to come back to be the coach because the new coach has the coronavirus. And that's basically what the movie's about. There's not a whole lot of other twists and turns, except there's a completely fucking separate storyline to where his 8-year-old son died. Now, I actually enjoyed this fucking separate storyline just coming out of nowhere in the middle of the movie. Definitely enjoyed this movie. I really thought that it was going to be the cheesiest thing and the worst thing I saw this year. Mainly only because of this.
We can't change the past, Jack. What we can do is choose how we move forward.
But it's actually pretty good. There's certain points to where the camera gets wonky and such like that, but the story and the pacing of this movie is done really well. The story at first is really bland, but like I said, they throw in this separate storyline of his family being torn apart because of his son's death. Their son that had cancer, that had died pretty early into his life. They throw that really kind of in the middle of the movie, and usually things like that don't work because you have to build up these things from the beginning. But they focus on working on this whole, he's an alcoholic and he's kind of a deadbeat, and he's really not anybody to really care about. They kind of throw that and that structure into the movie at the beginning, and then once they throw this in there, it's kind of just like the icing on top of the cake to really solidify, oh, he does have this reason to kind of be this alcoholic man. Not that there's a good reason to be an alcoholic, but we really see the emotional sides of things that have come from his story and his life to really push him to this point, to really solidify him against everybody else and to just be by himself. Then there's another family friend that's going through the same thing. It's a very heart-wrenching, very emotional movie. He goes into rehab after being clean for a while. And then, once his friend goes through the same thing, he kind of just clicks in his head. He just goes back to doing what it is that he was doing. But the movie just touches on all basic bases really much. The movie's shot nicely. It doesn't look like shit. But like I said, the story is good and it's weak at the same time. You can kind of tell what the ending's going to be just from watching it, from the beginning. You can foresee what the ending's going to be like. But at the end of the movie, he gets clean, he betters his life for hopefully the rest of it. Very heartfelt, I enjoyed it. Ben Affleck does a really good job in it. The whole cast in and of itself does really good, but Ben Affleck really hits that mark. I stand corrected for once, because I talked trash to this movie in front of a couple of other friends, and I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Let's talk about Forward now. No, I'm not a big Pixar fan. I'm not a big animated movie fan either. But I've seen a lot of different content creators that I follow here on YouTube talk about this movie and recommend it. But it's realistically just a generic Pixar movie with a couple of new attributes to it. Chris Pratt's character really annoys me in this movie. The whole journey in this movie's kind of worthless. They all just end up at the starting point. And this movie's actually pretty good. You're gonna see that as the theme of this video. I don't hate any of the movies that I'm talking about today. There are a few things that I did get annoyed with, just generic Disney things. Now this movie and Sonic that I'm both going to be talking about, I'm not going to really be talking about them in a literal standpoint because these movies are for children, obviously. So I'm not going to be too harsh on them. But the story to this movie is, it's kind of different from, the generic run around things that I've seen, I guess. But not really. But a couple of things that I did like about this movie is that the major points around this movie is they're all kind of based around Dungeons and Dragons.
Very nimble, so you're going to have to roll an 18 or above to hit. 20.
Flip, slap that hobbit's off, yo.
There's references to rolling dice, not being able to learn an ability because you're too low of a level, and going on this long adventure that just takes fucking forever to do. So seeing these fun little references were actually really nice. Something that as a D&D and role-playing player, could really just pick up on and kind of enjoy. It's very generic, very family-friendly movie, obviously. The whole movie's journey is basically worthless. They take this whole run around, like, basically the entire fucking world, just to end up back in their hometown, exactly where they started. So if you like D&D or you like role-playing games, and you have a family, or if you just want to watch this movie, I would definitely recommend this movie. It's a really good, heartfelt family movie, just like almost every Pixar movie is. But, it's really generic. It's for families. It's a very family-friendly movie. But if you like D&D, like I said, you'll really get a kick out of all the references that are in it. So I'm going to go ahead give this movie a 7.69 out of 10. Well, let's talk about Sonic.
I hate when people underestimate my fastness. I'm fast. I'm so fast, you couldn't even comprehend how fast I am.
God damn it!
Sonic's a very family-friendly, very funny, very ha-ha, hee-hee type of movie that the whole family can enjoy. Now, if you like Sonic, you'll probably enjoy this movie. If you're a hardcore Sonic fan, though...
Sega has got a freaking Sonic Adventure 3 in development with freaking Sonic Team. Because you freaking fricks just can't ever be quenched.
Maybe you'll like it too, but it doesn't really adapt any, I guess, video game storyline. I haven't really played any Sonic video games, so I can't really, attest to that. But it's kind of like what they did with Detective Pikachu. They kind of just adapted a separate storyline, and it doesn't really have its own story, I guess. But this whole movie's basically just about Sonic being on the run. Get it? He bounces to planet with his rings that he uses. He's from a different galaxy, and people find out about him, so he has to keep jumping from galaxy to galaxy or planet to planet to really get away from the people that want him to harvest him for his abilities. So I guess that kind of throws out the window of there being a sequel, regarding around like Shadow with Knuckles and all of that. I think that would be pretty cool to throw in the entire Sonic universe into this. But he bounces from planet to planet, but he can't bounce to the next planet that he has to go to because he lost his wedding rings. Now Human has to help him so that he can just at the end of the movie stay on Earth anyways. See what I mean? His movies are fine. It was really fun to watch. Dr. Eggman, basically worthless this entire movie. But then again, Jim Carrey's Dr. Eggman. I think we should just let that sink in for a second. I personally really don't have a whole lot to say. This movie's very fun. It's, shot just like a basic movie. I really don't have a whole lot to speak about. The storyline's, very vague, very bland. The acting's fine. Again, it's a child's movie. There's not a whole lot that I can really talk about. I'm really only making this video because I haven't made a video in a while. I'll go ahead and give Sonic a 6 out of 10. Very bland, very basic, not a whole lot. Maybe if they make a sequel, which I really hope they will, they kind of make it a little more intricate, involve all of Sonic's friends and foes or whatever. Make this really, really, like a really fucking insane movie. But now let's go ahead and talk about everybody's favorite comic book movie. Birds of Prey is actually really good. And I might be wondering, why is Birds of Prey good? Well, it stars and revolves all around women, and it's written and directed by women. Now, most of the time it's just men writing for women, and you know, most of the time that doesn't really work properly. I mean, the whole idea of this movie is basically just Harley being shutted away from Joker and her just kind of dealing with that and now creating her own persona and her own ideology. I mean, half of the movie is just her having like a full fucking mental breakdown. I'm not gonna run down the plot to this movie. I'm gonna give it the what the trailer really gave you guys. The trailer really doesn't give a whole lot to what the storyline is in this movie, so I can understand why people didn't go out and watch this movie. But this is definitely one of the better DC movies that have come out. It's not better than Shazam, but it's definitely better than Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League. But on that same level, it's not really good at character building. The story to this movie is kind of very bland and very weak. There's not a whole lot, you know, really holding the structures up to it. And the acting for most of the part is actually really good, except for Huntress. I guess you could really say that Huntress is kind of just like forming into this new persona that she is, but she sounds prepubescent for the entire film. Oh, another thing this movie does really bad is that it never touches on the subject on if it's a part of this bigger world that the DC has already created, or if it's just a throwaway that it's just based upon itself. They reference Bruce Wayne and obviously the Joker, so we know that those two things coincide with each other, but it's never touched upon. It's never explored, and the ideas don't really make a whole lot of sense. Now I'm kind of just attacking this movie after saying that I liked it, but I'm almost positive they only made this movie because it's in Margot Robbie's contract. At some point, I would assume this movie was going to be bigger and better, but the DC lost like 75% of their cast. RIP. I'm really just nitpicking it more than I did the other one, but I can't really nitpick kids movies, like I said. But there's just little basic, basic filmmaking properties that really go with it that they just kind of threw the ball on. But I mean, if you're gonna set a movie in a universe that's already built, then set it in that universe. Don't just make a throwaway movie because you guys want to barely make your money back. But with that all in all said, when I watched it, and I'll probably rewatch it at some point this year, I did enjoy it. This movie was really fun, really well done. But as of right now, from when I saw it, I'm gonna go ahead and give this movie a 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. And that's it for the movies of 2020 that I've seen so far. Now I know I've been pretty lazy about making videos. I've promised a couple of other videos that I'm going to make, and I'm sorry that I have not made those or worked on them. Being in quarantine's really put a damper on my whole mood to really focus myself to really do this, because really editing is the only thing I don't enjoy. I started a Twitch channel, so I'm gonna start editing these videos on my Twitch. Maybe it'll give me more of an effort. So if you guys want to go ahead and follow my Twitch, I'll let you know when I go live. If you want to hang out, watch me edit. Probably not the most entertaining thing, but I'll try to make it as entertaining as I can. But I'm also working on a separate project right now that I'm slowly but surely doing. I don't really want to get too far or give you any hints about it, but I'm